I come from Ireland. My ancestors are Irish. They were poor. In New England, they came over. I mean, we were slaves. You got to understand, my grandparents, they were bought and paid for servitude. They didn't call them like what they called the black slaves, but they called them servitude because they're white. So it was easy for them to have like the white Irish they're living in their homes. So they would look like they were, they could rape them, they could buy their children, they could do whatever they wanted because they were white. You understand what I'm saying? Like and they were the first slave servitude to be put into this country because in England they tortured the Irish. That was the problem between the Protestant, the North and the South, the Protestant, the Catholic. This is a faith, a religion war, and the whites are people. I mean, in Italy, because your skin is white doesn't mean that you're not being persecuted or you weren't being sold and bought, as a slave in this country, brought over here to this country. And all my relatives, all my ancestors they were working for the millionaires, the blue blood, the English, the Vanderbilts, all the Drexels, all these big blue blood families, the Roosevelts, the Rothschilds, all of them. They lived in Newport. They were millionaires in those days, in the Gilded Age. And the Irish were their slaves, and they took advantage of all the women. They bought and sold the babies. They brought them over. I mean, the same stories go about the whites' skin. I'm talking about skin now. So because it was easy for them to get away with, because they were white. Do you understand? So it was easy for them to get away with torturing the Irish. And that's what happened in New England. In my hometown, the Irish were slaves. My grandmother worked for the millionaires. They tortured my grandmother. They treated them horrible. They were horrible. They took advantage of them all the time. They raped them. They took their babies. They had multiple children too. Multiple. And it was easy because they didn't have to tell, because their skin color was white, the same as them. So it's a historical thing when we talk about that. Every American back in the day when this country was founded came from a different culture, a different area of the world. That's why we came here, because we wanted to run from tyranny. Freedom was what we wanted, to worship what we wanted to do and not be under tyranny. And so we all have this kind of, great Americanism, American, stories about our cultures. But, we got to get rid of this skin color and this kind of nonsense, because they're going after white people now. That's what they said about this win with Trump, that it was the white people. Yeah. It was the white people. Like, come on, stop. This is nonsense.
There was
that do that.
Guy I think it was on CNN, and he said,
"Yeah, I mean,
this was because white people are scared of not white people." And
I know, it's crazy stuff they say. I mean, I grew up with all my friends. I had Latino friends, I had black friends, I used to sit around with them and laugh about. They'd make fun of me because, in my family it was like, if you didn't get to dinner, you weren't eating. Like, they make fun of. I mean, it was just fun to grow up the way we grow up, and we got to bring that back. And to be honest with you, this, Tim, because you're my children's age, my kids' age. There was no color. There was no problem with any kind of racism. I never saw any of that. I saw prejudice. Prejudice is a word that people need to go look up, because adults will do that. They'll be. You can even be prejudiced against a food. Being prejudiced, look that word up as far as being racist,
In Chicago, we had crazy racial segregation.
Yes,
Chicago's like
exactly.
But it was done throughout the, up until the 80s intentionally by real estate markets.
That's exactly right.
They made it illegal, but those issues still exist. So where I grew up, since the 90s.
Yeah.
Sure, it's called blockbusting, it's called redlining.
Yeah.
Illegal. Didn't matter. Once you crossed 47th Street to the north, every single person there was black. No white people lived there.
Right.
And if a white person walked over there, the cops would pull over and say, get in the car and drive him back and say, you have no business being over there. Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.